Here's a quick technique tip for you Wing Chun guys out there, right? If you have been around, cross training, especially in the traditional martial arts, if you've seen a lot of karate and even some of the other kung fu styles out there, I mean, look, there's loads, and I don't expect anybody to see everything. There's not a lot of call for upward blocks in fist fighting. There just aren't. A lot of the times we see these upward blocks as they're proxies from back in the armed days. Most kung fu systems and thus karate as a second generation kung fu system. All of these go back to weapons oriented systems, which is going to see a lot more things coming down from overhead, just because a lot of weapons will naturally follow that path, right? You put a stick, a sword, a rock in somebody's hand, and most likely they're going to be coming high to low in a very catapult-like fashion. That is just a very normal thing. So you get somebody a club, and it's usually going to be fairly oblique. It's not usually going to be straight down or straight sideways. There are definitely all degrees around the clock. But the point is that we generally don't see a lot of upward blocking. However, some people have come up with clever uses for it, like, well, if I'm fighting with somebody and I jam my fist up or my forearm up into their throat, yeah, I can see that if you get down into a low crouch and you grab onto their wrist or their sleeve or something like that, and just jam into their throat, that can be useful. I mean, even in Chum Q, we see this pull and drive, and that could totally be that kind of idea. And by the way, that Lan Sao is pretty close to what we'd be looking at for an upward block in Wing Chun. But my tip here is actually not to think of it like Lan Sao. I want you to think of it almost more like Bong Sao. When we do Bong Sao, right? I know I talk about Bong Sao a lot, but that's just because it's such a misfit technique. Because it's clearly a fencing technique. It's one that does show up in other systems, but it doesn't show up a lot in other systems. And it's a fairly nuanced technique. But when we do Bong Sao, that rolling action is pretty important, right? We're spending that time to roll the hand down, roll the elbow up. We have our landmarks of the styloid process on the center, elbow on the shoulder line, right? And that's where we want to be. And then we have our low Bong Sao, and we just bring the low one down. Our general rule of thumb is the elbow should be about a fist distance, right? Now, look, if you're particularly rotund, you may just have to sacrifice and be closer to your body because at some point you can't be too extended. Also, don't be that. But, so our low position would be down to, if you drop that down into about an elbow position away, and again, that styloid process is going to stay on the same line because all of your changing is elevation, and same thing here. Well, notice this rotation. The way that I was taught upward blocking when I was doing Kempo, and this is true of karate guys that I've talked to as well, is kind of almost like an uppercut and roll up and out. And that gives you a little bit of almost a striking action. Now, it's not going to do what Bong Sao does, right? Ours is working the bridge and pushing something across the center line that way so we can go that way, or so that we can grab it and then come back over. You're not going to do that with an upward block, but giving it that action, with a bit of a thud, and all of a sudden, if something's coming down that way, might be good for somebody throwing a big overhand haymaker. Boom, right? Slam into their arm. That gets into the Kempo idea that we use of every block is a strike, every strike is a block, right? Is one of the things your defense can and should be doing is causing damage to the other guy, causing damage to the incoming weapon at least, right? And so getting that extra little bit of flick, man, there's a lot of power in this flick. Being able to flick over like this, it doesn't add any forward power, right? We've talked about that before, but it certainly adds a little bit of outward power. And if I catch the block here and I roll it out, that gives me a little more, even if I'm not colliding with it, it gives me a little bit more something just to kind of fling it off and disengage with it, which then allows me to come back in with, say, a hammer fist, a deng choi, something like that. So we can absolutely use this Bong Sao motion, right? Bong Sao, Bong Sao, Bong Sao, right? It's still a wing block. It's, I've talked about this before. Bong Sao means like shoulder, upper arm, and also it means wing, right? So, we use the term because, it's like a bird wing, right? And everybody likes to say that Wing Chun comes from white crane, even though there's no evidence of that. There are certainly stylistic similarities, but there's stylistic similarities with like Chow Gao praying mantis too. Nobody says that we're doing mantis. So, whatever. The point is that maybe it's wing, but maybe it's also talking about, hey, this is one of the times you're actually using your shoulder and upper arm. You're not just using your wrist and your elbow, right? We focus so much on the elbow and our straight lines and all that. Bong Sao is definitely a spiraling move, and it's definitely using the shoulder, right? So bringing this in, boom, and striking up can be pretty useful. And so, if we talk about this in the sense of like the Wing Chun expanded universe, then this is just an upward Bong Sao. And yes, it's not doing the normal job of what Bong Sao would. It's Bong Sao in shape. It's Bong Sao in motion. But it almost works like Gan Sao, right? Gan Sao, boom, here, right? This plowing hand, right? The idea, chopping in, right? Our Gan Sao movement is much more like the karate inward block and the downward block. Lan Sao energy, right? Prohibiting, barring. So the energy is different, right? Even that roll and flick is a little bit more jut than it is, anything else. So you're borrowing energy from something else. You're borrowing what it does, right? Effect from something else. But you're using that Bong Sao shape, right? So you could be looking at as like an upward Bong Sao, a rolling Gan Sao, rolling like outside Gan Sao. You could look at it as different ways. But I would say definitely go ahead and add that into your Wing Chun system, because look, we already use this line all the time for upper rounds. We just generally kind of put it out and then just, what do you call it? Some people say it's Wu Sao. Some people say, well, no, Wu Sao is here. Some people say, well, this is still Wu Sao. We're just extending it out. Even though there's no precedent for that in the forms. But, Wu Sao generally means protecting hand. So, I'm protecting myself, yeah, but then, it's energy, right? So am I giving it plowing energy? Am I giving it shocking jut energy? Am I, doing Bong Sao using the shoulder? Well, yeah, all of it, right? All of it. So yeah, if you're a Wing Chun guy, go ahead and add that in. Just start playing with your Bong Sao. Low, middle, high, and play with it. See what you can make out of it. And yeah, I will talk to you guys later. Good journey. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, share. Check us out on our other socials, and please head over to blacksunboxing.com to get a little more info, including how to contact us. Furthermore, if you are in the Phoenix area, please feel free to stop in, say hi, join in for a class, whatever. Also, if you ever see us cite sources or just for additional content, please check out our Substack. That is where we put all of the sources we use in our videos and is a major part of this. Plus, it serves as a membership platform for long distance learning and for people who would like to support us but aren't local. We would greatly appreciate it if you signed up. Even just the free membership helps us out a lot. All right, I will see you guys in the next video. Good journey.